it's Mandy. Welcome to my channel. This video is the finance breakdown for my rental properties for the month of June. I have been making these videos every month since January, and I will continue to make them throughout the end of the year. If you are interested in seeing more videos like this, please hit the subscribe button. So we have 16 rental properties and 5 properties that used to be rental properties, but we have owner financed them to past tenants. And of those 5 owner finance properties, we brought in $2,627.10 this month. And in rent, we brought in $8,295, and that is 100% of our rent. That's everybody paid rent, and they paid rent in full. And so that gives us a total of $10,922.10 that my rental property business brought in for the month of June. Okay, so for expenses, I have a loan that I have to repay to my mom because in January I purchased 7 properties altogether. I didn't have the money to do this on my own, and the rental properties business didn't have the money in the bank to purchase those properties either. So I borrowed the money from my mom to do that, and I am paying her back each month at 2%. That payment is $2,760. The second expense was a bill for $291.21. That bill was just from the hardware store because I actually ended up doing quite a few repairs on the rental properties myself this month. And the reason for that is just because we had a never-ending mess of plumbing problems. And so my plumber was just way behind because he was busy with a bunch of other stuff, and I had given him like 3 or 4 jobs, and he was still trying to fit those into his schedule, and then I had more plumbing issues come up. So if it was simple enough, I just would go do it myself. So I replaced 2 kitchen sink faucets. They were both leaking. I replaced a supply line and an angle stop valve that were leaking under the same kitchen sink, and on both of those kitchen sinks, the bottom of the cabinet had rotted out because they both had been leaking for quite a while. And so I tore out the bottom of both of those kitchen cabinets, put a fan on them, let them dry for about a week, and then I came back in and I put a new plywood bottom under the kitchen sink, sanded it, painted it, used some liquid nails, stuck it in there real good, and I replaced, like I said, the supply lines and the faucet, and one of them had an angle stop valve that also was leaking. I don't think it was originally leaking, but once I turned it off and then turned it back on, it started leaking. That's part of the expenses for that $291 from the hardware store, but the biggest part of that is actually I had some screens remade for an entire house. The house didn't have any screens in the window, and that was about $140. So, like I said, we had plumbing issue after plumbing issue after plumbing issue this month. It just seemed to never end. The first thing that went wrong was really simple. The hot water heater just wasn't heating as much as it used to. A lot of times when that happens, you just have an element that's going bad, and my plumber came over, cleaned out that hot water heater, and changed the element, and that was $125.64. So the second plumbing issue, it's actually one of the houses that I ended up replacing the kitchen faucet on, but I was out of town and they told me that in the basement, when they looked up, there was actually a pipe that was dripping. And so I asked them, well, what's directly overhead? And it's a kitchen. I specifically told them, like, check the kitchen sink and see underneath the cabinet there, is there anything leaking? And they said no. And so I called the plumber because, I needed to call a plumber anyway. I was just trying to address the problem the best I could over the phone, and maybe they could turn off an angle stop valve and get it to stop leaking overnight. So the plumber came out, and it turns out it was the supply line under the kitchen sink. I don't know how the tenants completely missed that the kitchen sink was leaking and that the cabinet underneath that supply line was completely rotted out, but somehow they missed it. I don't know. And so that was $75. He just replaced the supply line, but he told me that the faucet also needed replaced and that I would have to rebuild the bottom of that cabinet because it was rotted out. So I did both of those things, and he just replaced the supply line, which I could have done myself, but like I said, I was out of town, and also the way that they were describing the leak, it didn't seem like it was a supply line. And then the third plumbing issue, and this one was really weird, but there's this like vent pipe, it looks like, in the basement of the house. And then you start thinking, why the heck would there be a vent pipe inside of the house? Makes absolutely no sense, doesn't seem safe, doesn't seem like it meets any like minimum building standards. And so here's a picture of what that looked like. And the problem is that when it rained really, really heavy, there was water coming up out of that pipe. It wasn't septic tank water. It didn't smell bad. It was just like clear water. So I had no idea what was happening. The tenants said that it happened a few times before I bought the house, which was in January, but this year it's just been raining more than ever, and so it had happened a couple times this year, and they hadn't told me about it until the last time when it was the worst. Because I guess they had told their previous landlord and he didn't do anything about it, so they just didn't tell me. And so I called the plumber, and he told me that that is not a vent pipe. It's just a drain where somebody had stuck a pipe into it. And he came over and he cleaned it out, like rented some kind of machine and snaked it out, cleaned it out really well, and so far we haven't had any more issues with it. It hasn't overflowed at all, even though we have still had quite a bit of rain. The final maintenance item in June was I got a call about 8:30 on a Saturday night, and it was from a tenant, and she said their air conditioner had just stopped working. And I really honestly did not know who to call at 8:30 on a Saturday night. The guy that I normally use for heat and air doesn't do emergency calls, so I wasn't sure who to call. And the problem was that the tenant who lives in that house is in her 90s, so it is a little concerning during the summer if her air is not working, even if it's for a day. And the tenant said, well, she knew someone to call and she would call them if that was okay with me. And I said, yeah, no problem, just call them and tell them to do whatever it needs to get it fixed. And what happened was there actually wasn't a problem with the air conditioner. The air conditioner's not that old in that house, so I was surprised that it had gone out. But it wasn't the air conditioner at all. Turns out the house is still on a fuse box. Here's a picture of the fuse box of the house. And the fuse had just gone out. It's interesting because that lady has lived in that house. She's in her 90s, and she's lived in that house 21, 22 years now. And to my knowledge, the fuse box we've never blown a fuse before. And I say that because, of course, if it was 20 years ago, I really wouldn't know. But I've gone through all the records for all the houses, and I didn't see where we'd ever replaced a fuse before. And I know at least for a fact that it hasn't blown in the last 5 years. So the fuse did blow, and for the heat and air guy to come out and to replace the fuse, it was $202.81, which most of that is an emergency fee, but a fuse is like $10. So in the future, like, she now has an extra fuse in case it were to blow again. Hopefully we could avoid paying another $200. Okay, so the total expenses for the month of June were $3,062.24. And that makes our year-to-date income that we've brought in $91,012.10. And that makes our year-to-date out, the expenses, the maintenance, the insurance, the property taxes, all of that has been $76,895.24. So that puts us in the positive. Year to date, we have made $14,117. If you guys are enjoying these videos, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. If not, give me a thumbs down. Any feedback is appreciated. Thank you guys very much, and I'll see you next month. Bye!